Hello bookworms, it's Jade from Bedtime Bookworm and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm here with my spoiler-free review of Wilder Girls by Rory Power. I received an advanced reader copy of this in exchange for an honest review when I attended the North Texas Teen Book Festival earlier this year. In this review, I'm going to start with my overall thoughts on the book, and then move into more specifics like the plot, pacing, writing style, characters, and I'll explain the things that I did and didn't like about this book. At the very end of this video, I will go into a little bit of a spoiler section because there is one thing that I would like to touch on, but the majority of this video is going to be spoiler-free. I was really excited about picking up this book because it's a YA horror, which is a genre that I really enjoy. Specifically, I knew that there was body horror in this book, and it was also pitched to me as a feminist Lord of the Flies. And while it's been a really long time since I've read Lord of the Flies, I enjoyed it when I read it in middle school. I was basically the only person in my 8th grade class that enjoyed it. Unfortunately, I'm sad to say that I did not really enjoy this book and I gave it 2 out of 5 stars. I think that a lot of people have and will enjoy this book, but I do think this book is going to be pretty polarizing. People are either going to love it or they're going to hate it. The 2 major things that I struggled with in this book were the writing style and the way that the book ended, and I will go into more specifics about those things later in the review. So let's start with a little synopsis. This book is set at an all-girls boarding school on an isolated island off the coast of Maine. This island and this school has been put under quarantine by the United States Navy because there has been an outbreak of something called the tox, and this tox has started changing and mutating everything on the island, including the girls and the teachers at the school. At the start of the story, many of the teachers and girls at the school have already died, and the ones that have survived have all been changed in some way. The story focuses around 3 girls. Our main character, Hetty, has an eyelid that has become fused shut, and there is something growing behind her eye. Then we have her best friend, Bayet, who has grown a second spine, and then the third girl in this friend group is Reese, who has a hand that has turned into like a silver metal claw, and she glows. Because the school has been quarantined, the girls at the school have been completely cut off from the rest of the world, and they're not allowed to leave school property, and most of them can't leave the school grounds because the woods outside of the school have become quite dangerous because there are wild animals that have been transformed by the tox. The only ones that can are the girls chosen to be on boat duty, which are the girls who go and pick up the supplies that are provided for them every week by the United States Navy. However, when Bayet goes missing, Hetty will do whatever she has to find her friend, including venturing out into the woods. In general, I love a good disease outbreak story, and at first, that's definitely something that I enjoyed about this book. However, as the mystery behind the tox is starting to be revealed, I felt like we didn't quite go deep enough, and we only really scratched the surface. I definitely wanted more explanation about the tox and how it worked and where it came from. As far as the body horror in this book, I did enjoy those elements, but I also don't think it was too grotesque. I personally have read some adult horror books that involve body horror, and I didn't think this book was quite as gross and disgusting as the adult horror books that I've read. In many ways, this book reminded me of the movie Annihilation, as far as the way that animals and plants and the girls themselves were changing in this environment. And I think that this book will appeal to a lot of people because of that. I don't know if I particularly felt like the feminist Lord of the Flies pitch really fit for this book. Maybe it's just that it's been too long since I've read Lord of the Flies, but while survival was definitely a key aspect to the story, I didn't feel like the girls really had to struggle that hard to survive because food was being delivered to them. I mean, there definitely wasn't enough food to go around, but there wasn't as much emphasis on the survival skills that I was anticipating when I was going into this book. I also don't know if I feel like this book was all that feminist, other than the fact that most of the characters are girls. I didn't find that the girls were particularly empowered, and I definitely got the sense that the girls were competing against each other for either food or for different responsibilities that they wanted. As far as the pacing, I thought the beginning of the book was quite interesting because it was setting up this world, but then it quickly became a little boring for me and I didn't feel like much was happening. This book is definitely more character driven than it is plot driven. And then at about 60 to 70% through the book, things start to pick up, things get a lot more interesting, and there are some reveals that had me on my toes. And I was speeding along through the end of the book until we get to the ending. I will definitely talk more about the ending in my spoilery section of this video, but I'll go ahead and say here that I was very disappointed with the ending and I did not find it satisfactory at all. I've definitely seen reviews where people really loved the way that this book ended, but I'm just not one of those people. As I mentioned, this book is pretty character driven, and I think one thing that appeals to a lot of readers is that all of these characters, because they are trying to survive on this island, are a little bit morally gray. They do what they have to survive, and at some points were definitely unlikable. There is a female-female romance in this book, which I think is a selling point for a lot of people. The romance is not a major point in the story, it's definitely more in the background, and while I appreciated that there was a female-female romance, it seemed to kind of come out of nowhere, and I just didn't find it particularly believable. I think part of that was that I was having a hard time connecting with the characters, which I think stems from the writing style. I mentioned that I really struggled with this writing style. It's definitely a unique and kind of edgy writing style. It's very stylized, and I think it's something that some people are going to really like and some people aren't. This book is written in first-person present tense. It has kind of short and choppy sentences, and it feels a little bit like stream of consciousness. The writing style felt very erratic and disjointed to me, which I think prevented me from really connecting with the characters. Even though it was stream of consciousness-like, I often didn't understand Hetty's thought processes or why she did things or said certain things. I do think that the writing style was intentional, and I think maybe it's meant to sort of reflect the chaotic nature of living on this island with the tox outbreak, or maybe reflect how the girls are feeling disjointed and chaotic in this post-apocalyptic world. Alright, those are all of my spoiler-free thoughts on this book. If you think it sounds interesting, I hope you pick it up, and I hope it works better for you than it did for me. I am going to take a few minutes to talk about the ending of this book, and I will be going into spoilers, so if you haven't read this book and plan to read it, then I would click off the video now. If you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel for more bookish content. Let's talk about that ending. I was so frustrated at the end of this book because I was all amped up and excited when the girls were leaving the island together, only to have the book just end. I felt like that ending came out of nowhere. I was not expecting it to just stop right there. I want to know what happened to Byatt and if she's going to survive. What happened to all the girls that were still left at the school? I just felt like there were so many loose threads. Honestly, in my heart, I feel like the author didn't know how to end the book, and so she just ended it super abruptly. I also wanted to know more about the tox and this parasite. I loved that it ended up being a parasite that was causing the tox, but we learned so little about that. I wanted to learn more about it and where it came from, and I just found the ending completely unsatisfactory. None of my questions were answered, and the story just like stopped dead in its tracks. In a lot of ways, this book reminded me of The Troop by Nick Cutter. So if you read this book but you wanted more from it, or even if you enjoyed this book and you want to read an adult version that is much, much gorier, let me warn you, then I recommend picking up The Troop by Nick Cutter. It's an adult horror that has a lot of similarities to this book, but I loved the ending of that book, and if you've read that book, that's the ending that I think that this book should have had, but I felt like the author just didn't feel like she could go there. Anyways, those are all of my thoughts on Wilder Girls. Let me know down in the comment section what you thought of it, but keep it spoiler free. If you want to talk spoilers, feel free to DM me either on Instagram or on Twitter, and I'd be happy to talk spoilers there. If you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel for more bookish content. That is all I have for now. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, bookworms, keep reading. Bye. You want in my lap or what? You want in my lap? Why are you looking at me like that? Come on, lay down. You gotta lay down. I'm filming. I love you.